Thank you for tuning in to the 5th episode of the virtual Asia Thinken series by the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy. This webinar is sponsored by the Singapore Global Network, a division of the Economic Development Board. I'm Tan Po Lin, Assistant Professor here at the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy. And today we have three distinguished panelists. Mr. Ishak Ismail, Chairman of Families for Life Council. Prof. Yeung, who is the Provost-Chair Professor at NUS from the Sociology Department and the Center for Family and Population Research at NUS. And Dr. Ng Kok Ho, a Senior Research Fellow and the Head of the Case Study Research Unit at the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy. We're gathered here tonight because the COVID-19 pandemic has made wide and deep changes to our lives. Let me just quickly list some of these unprecedented changes that have been reported in the past few months. So the young people among us have had their education disrupted. Those who are just graduating are entering an extremely difficult labor market. And those who are starting a family are having to shelve their plans or having their plans disrupted. Businesses and workers are struggling to survive the current climate, and parents are being stressed out from the disruption in childcare and working from home. So in the news, we hear about rises in spousal abuse, we hear about rises in divorce all around the world. And finally, of course, the elderly face threats, not only to their ability to retire, but they're also the group that's facing the highest health risks from infection. So right now we're seeing all these simultaneous strains and tensions on individuals. And together, they have a cumulative effect on the family as a whole. So maybe we can have Kok Ho kicking off the discussion. Kok Ho, what do you see as the major stress points to the family, and how are they changing relationships?
Thanks, Pauline. I speak today from the perspective of a social policy researcher who has been studying social exclusion and marginalization in the last few years, especially in the areas of housing and minimum income standards. I think it's important to recognize at the outset the diversity that exists beyond idealized forms of family home, family life, especially along the lines of social and economic inequality. So related to this, I will make three observations. The first is that there are in fact many people in our society who do not live with their families, and they face increased risks at these times. Right? We must talk about this because they are large groups, they are not minor exceptions. The first group is, of course, migrant workers. There are today about 1 million work permit holders who, as a condition of working and living in Singapore, are not allowed to bring over their family or form families here. Right? This includes almost 300,000 in construction alone and another 260,000 domestic workers. For them, housing means living in crowded and unsafe purpose-built housing or someone else's home. At these times, they are worrying about personal livelihood and safety, as well as their family's safety back home. The second group is homeless people. The size of this population is about 1,000 at the last count that we did last year, and there are surely more now. Right? So during this period of lockdown, public spaces have become inaccessible, and this group already inherently face higher risks because many homeless people are older, they have poor health and nutrition, and just because of the challenges of observing hygiene practices when you're sleeping rough. Right? So recently there was an extraordinary public call by a voluntary outreach group for organizations and individuals to open up their premises and homes to homeless people. And then many groups responded. Right? It reminded me of the little ships of Dunkirk situation. I say it's extraordinary because as a society that is known for home ownership, for its comprehensive public housing program that today accommodates more than 3 million people, we are suddenly scrambling for space. Right? Of course, this partly due to an unprecedented crisis, but we have also for a long time been uneasy with housing people who cannot afford to pay. So this leads me to my second observation, which is about low-income families and individuals living in overcrowded public rental housing. So for this group, the lack of space has always had an impact on their privacy, on family relationships, on the children's education, on health, and these effects are more keenly felt now. Right? I know some of us have been struggling with finding a quiet spot for the children to study or for a virtual meeting. Right? But for people living in rental housing, this pressure on space in the family home is far greater. So for families with children who live in public rental housing, regardless of household size, the largest flat that is available has only one bedroom. Right? It's about 40 odd square meters. For single elderly people in a public rental housing system, the situation is even harder. They are in fact required to share a single space, an open space that has no bedrooms with another stranger. Right? It's only about 30 odd square meters. And the numbers are not small. In Singapore, there are 63,000 rental flats, and around half of these will house elderly people. A third are families with children. If we apply the HDB's occupancy limit for flats that are let on the open market, which is 4 persons in 1 and 2 room flats, 15% of public rental households are living in overcrowded conditions. And this is not even the full scale of people living in inadequate housing, because there are people on the wait list for public rental housing, or who do not have stable or permanent housing, but they do not qualify for rental housing because of an income limit that has not been revised in 17 years. Right? The current income limit for public rental housing was set in 2003. And many of these people who don't qualify or are waiting are perhaps living with friends or relatives on a temporary basis. The third observation is that being in lockdown, of course, means changes to family life because of the new ways we have to share space. For low-income families, there is also psychological impact from other sources. Being locked down for them may mean a suspension of work and income, and the stoppage of public and social services on which they are heavily dependent. So as a result, low-income families are facing problems meeting basic needs. We talk about how because many of them are working in service jobs, including essential services, for which work from home arrangements are not possible, they face an impossible choice between health and income. Right? If they chose health and avoided going to work, then income suffers. If they chose to keep up income, then they may expose themselves and therefore their family to greater risks of sickness. At the same time, the level of support from social work agencies has fallen because social services are cut back at this time of greatest need. So family service centers today operate skeletal services with their physical centers closed. Right? And we know that some home visiting services have also been suspended. Right? So among other things, we have seen a surge in demand for food rations and free meals. Right? I flagged this particular need, food security, because in our research on minimum income standards, in the last few years, our research participants define a basic standard of living in Singapore as one that covers essential material needs like food, clothing, and shelter, as well as social and less tangible needs like participation, respect, and security. Now, often in public discussions, the attention is on the latter, maybe because we assume that essential material needs have been met in our society. But this is not true. Even in normal times, things like housing and food security are a problem for some families. And this crisis should awaken us to the reality that as a society, we have not yet been able to meet everyone's basic needs. That's all from me for now.
Jean, what would you add to Koho's assessment of the impact on families? What does academic research have to say in addition to what has already been brought up?
Right. Thank you for including me in this very important discussion. I thought that in the next few minutes, I would share with you all what we have learned from the history and academic research work about how major shocks, such as economic stress and natural disasters like tsunami and earthquake, have affected the family, how families have coped, and what are some of the factors that could mitigate this impact and the nature of the impact. After that, if I have time, I hope to share with you some of the new findings from new studies that my team has been working on about Singapore families. So to start off, I think we all know that COVID-19 began as a health pandemic, which caused a global economic recession and a near universal school closure and months of time of lockdown for everyone to stay at home. So what we're seeing here is multiple shocks happening simultaneously. This is something that we rarely see in the history. Each one of these shocks by itself could upset the routines, social structure, and norms in the society. So when we have multiple shocks together, we can expect that families are significantly affected. Studies around the world tell us that in times like this, most families will experience major income loss, and many will lose their jobs. Some will have family members who becomes extremely ill or died. Such events are linked to emotional distress, anxiety, depression, health problems, unstable marriages, mounting tension in the family. So couples have more quarrels and conflict. Intergenerational relations become more tense. Parents, for example, could use harsher parenting behavior to children. So it is not surprising that we have been seeing a rise in divorce and domestic violence, abuse in many countries recently, because it always happens when there's external shocks like this that happens. What I was shocked, however, was the magnitude and the speed of the rise this time. In some places, they're reporting doubling of these rates in a very short time, in a matter of a month or so. This magnified impact reflects that we have multiple stress points, indeed multiple stress points than we have seen before. And having everyone locked down in a confined space surfaces a lot of problems in the families, such as money problems, infidelity issues, and so on. The second thing I want to talk about is how have family coped. They often cut consumptions, food, entertainments, healthcare expenditures, postpone major services such as house, cars, and they postpone entering into major life events, such as getting married, having a baby or a new baby, into cheaper living quarters, or doubling up with families or friends to save cost. Others have to find extra family incomes, wives that cooks or do some other things to sell to bring in extra income. Older adult children drop out of school prematurely to go into the labor market to make up for the job loss of the parents, for example. Many families have to borrow money, sell or pawn their belongings, get onto welfare or more. In short, there are high socioeconomic and psychological costs on the quality of individual and family lives. My third point is these shocks have uneven effect on different families. Families that have been saving for rainy days, that is, you have bank savings, wealth, and so on, they can weather the storms much better. Families that have strong social support networks, such as family members that can provide resources and help of various kind or emotional support, they tend to do better. If a family has cohesive relationship or common religion belief that also seem to help reduce the emotional stress. Then if one has strong community and government public safety nets, that helps a lot. So in this COVID-19 crisis, Singapore government has done a lot, and we can talk about that too, and community also have come together. However, there's a great inequality among the families, as we have heard from the first speaker, Kohei. Low-income families are going to be, who are already struggling before the COVID-19, will suffer the most. My fourth point is that there is uneven impact on individuals and even family members within the same household. The vulnerable groups are those with low education. Youth, we all know that youth unemployment rate is usually 3 to 5 times higher than the adult unemployment rate. Women are often the first to go when there's a layoff. They also have higher occupational health hazard because many of them work as in the healthcare industry. They may experience violence at home, and they carry out disproportionate unpaid labors of childcare and housework at home. Then there's the racial minority groups, the elderlies we have heard about, and migrant workers as well. My final point is that there are both short-term and long-term impact of these shocks. Research in UK and Germany clearly shows that the graduating cohort during the economic recession still have lower wages 5 years after the recession. And children who grew up in Great Depression are more likely to have mental and behavioral problems in adulthood. So the impact of COVID-19 will not disappear on June 1 when the circuit breaker is over. We need to be concerned about its aftermath. So now I'm going to share you very quickly about what's happening in Singapore with some insight from the new study called Singapore Longitudinal Early Development Study, short for SG Leads. Now, as I said, the government and community this time has done a lot and very prompt action to help families. And many families are coping well in Singapore. But I think there's a minority groups, as the first speaker has mentioned, that especially those live in the HDB rental houses, that accounts for about 6% of the total household, that are most vulnerable. They're experiencing grave space constraints, financial deprivation, food insecurity, and other disadvantages. Let me just quickly give you a few statistics from the study that we have. And the study, SG Leads sampled about 5,000 children aged 0 to 6, and it's a nationally representative sample. Among the 400 SG Leads families who live in the rental units, 30% of them have 5 to 6 people live in the 1 to 2 room housing, and 10% have 7 or more people. So we talked about the space constraints that is real, and it's very difficult to live in a crowded space and confined space for a long time, not going out, especially in the circuit breakers now. Many of them also experience financial strains, income and job loss. I just give you one statistic. A third of these families reported that they did not have enough money to make ends meet at the end of the month. During the last year, 38% have fallen behind in paying bills, and 9.5% of these households have their utility cut off. These are situations before COVID-19, and you can expect that situation are much worse nowadays. Food insecurity, this is also something of great concerns. 1 in 3 of these SG Leads families in the rental household report that they are worried about their current food situation at home. 1 in 7 households, 14.5%, said their children do not have enough food because they could not afford it. So there are a lot more statistics that I can quote, but I don't have time now. The point is clear that there are a group of people in Singapore that needs a lot of help, and we need to pay attention to them. And some of the implications are long term, so we need to be careful about the aftermath. Thank you.
So now we turn to the third panelist, Ishak. So far, we've heard from two academic viewpoints. As a practitioner, can you share your perspective?
Right, thank you. From what I hear, it kind of sounds that we have situations in the family, to even say that families are kind of unique siege situation. I want to start by acknowledging that this is indeed a trying period for all families. As Jean has said, multiple shocks. We kind of say this is like something we've not experienced before. It's all in one go, right? We've got work from home, home-based learning. I would like to take on the area for what I call the mainstream families. I've noted Kok has talked about unique situations. Jean has talked about the conditions that she's mentioned. But you know, we've got 1.1 million households in Singapore. So there's still a lot more mainstream families that are in these trying moments within the pandemic. And we recognize that. And of course, we certainly know that those that need support, those need protection. Before COVID, the family situations are not good to start with. And what happens in COVID, we're mindful that these situations of conflict will indeed become more obvious as all those conditions exist. Utilities, all the basic needs, even those on slow boil conflicts will start to erupt and start to boiling point. There'll be multiple cracks, and perhaps new problems will be created within such families. Perhaps even with mainstream families, we're going to start having, as we see reported in the newspapers, an increase in marital issues, perhaps even parenting a child. So we acknowledge that. But let me go back to that topic. The pandemic make or break the family. The family needs this moment to then decide how do we all collectively move forward. We are in siege. We're still a family unit. So I don't know the answer yet. I can't conclude this. Let me tell you why I say this. For the families that are in the situation that is mentioned earlier, that situation exists before and will be increased within this period. But for the mainstream families, the 700,000 odd households that are with parents and children living together, there is still time to work towards building stronger families within this period. We've just had 2 months of kind of circuit breaker. We don't know when this is going to end. So the time to build strong families, to make strong families is here now. It's ongoing. And what is interesting is it needs to be done from within families. Yes, we need to support them. There'll be support required because they will need that support. But the powerful thing is we are now together, kind of stuck at home for those other families. And the powerful thing is starting to make families from within. So perhaps the pandemic and the circuit breaker open us to a realization that our families matter. And that is the opportunity that's being presented to us in making our families. So what we need to think about then is things take time. That is the notion I'm very familiar with. If we say we are in issues today, things take time. We're getting used to the 2 months. We're seeing families coping with different measures in place. We cope. We struggle. The families with young kids kind of struggle with home-based learning when it first started. They're coping with it. Those who need support, the lower income, there are means and ways that were supported them in terms of loaning laptops, even internet connectors. And those who really needed space, they even went back to school. But they're starting to cope. the families are starting to learn togetherness. They're starting to discover joy. And that's the start at how the pandemic we need to look at it. Is this happening? And if families are beginning to see that or uncover that the family becomes the center, which means we see the families playing a key role in riding this out. Because yes, you need support. You need if you're not at work, what happens next? But your start point starts from where you exist in the household. I also want to say that when families make or break, with all these other things coming on them, families are trying because it's about human relationship. So even in a household, father's still working. Yes, he's working from home. Mom does well, steps up and starts more cooking perhaps. The family, more people chip in to cook. Kids are getting used to home-based learning. But even then, in such situations, it's mindful to remember that as families, we are in relationships. And we're not robots programmed to live together. You know, you're just a family, A, B, C, D, you do this. We're not robots. And it's in any relationship, it needs work, it needs attention. So I want to share my last few points before we start the conversation and looking at these mainstream families per se. We need to focus, of course, the support required for the situations that was mentioned earlier, but for the mainstream family, we need to perhaps focus on beyond the circuit breaker. We need to focus and ride on the opportunities presented to how we make the family. Let me perhaps share 4 Ps that we at the Families for Life are looking in, trying to see how do we support families, how do we try and make families stronger, and as that being the center of attention for families staying at home. One is we will partner organizations, whether it's private, public, agencies, and to find the ecosystem to support our families, those that need help. We need to do this better. We need to find out where they are, what sort of families we have, and really partner organizations out there to do as much as we can. For the families that say, yes, I see the family as my attention, we need to provide them vitamins to make them stronger. This is heading upstream. This is before there are cracks, before the situation becomes a siege. We need to perhaps provide, which is the second P, vitamins, maybe to use the word inoculations, to grow strength within the family with different programs, with different initiatives, with resources that we can use to bring upstream to kind of strengthen these families. And I think we need to be present. We need to roll out programs targeted at families across their different life stages, pre-marriage, marriage, having kids, having elder kids, dealing with engaging or taking care of elder parents. So that we need to make these programs accessible, be present and be where they are, perhaps reaching into locations, going to the community. That's what we want to do. And of course, without doubt, we also want to continue to protect and support. Because the strong family, even the strong family needs support. It needs a larger society. And we need to figure out the programs that we need to do this. Pick up the data that we just heard, find out where they are. And from that baseline, using COVID as a point of leverage, so to speak, let's push it forward and see how we can make the family. Thanks, Bonnie.
Thank you very much, Ishak, for that for those thoughts. We're now going to open the panel up to a discussion format, and I'd like to invite all of our viewers at this time to also post your question on Facebook Live. We are trying to make it interactive as well, so do join our conversation by letting us know what you're thinking about. Perhaps I could just open up by mentioning that, Jean, today you published an opinion piece in the Straits Times titled "COVID-19 Can Widen Gaps in Children's Development." And in the piece, you highlighted that mothers are spending almost 4 hours, whereas fathers spend less than 2 hours a day with their children during weekdays. Now, what do you think has happened with the circuit breaker? Do you think that this dynamic has changed And do you think that there are consequences for marital harmony as a result?
I am optimistic about family dynamics. I think one other piece of information you didn't quote is that on weekend, the time that mother and father spent with the child is a lot more equal. And so my hope is that during the circuit breaker, when both mothers and fathers are working at home and working with children, the fathers will have a first seat view to see how home life is like, how to interact with children, how to do housework and so on, and they get a lot more involved because looking at the pattern on weekend, it's quite likely that I think that the trend for a lot more fathers' involvement and men's involvement in housework and childcare will happen, even though it's gradual. So this is my hope, and we still need more data to validate that.
Thank you for the question. I think that I would right now just continue that train of thought, this time taking a question from the audience. And the question is, what are the difficulties of adults who are reliving traumas from their childhood because they are trapped with narcissistic abusive parents? So it kind of goes on the same theme about parents and children spending time, but I think it's in this case it is too much time together. So in Singapore, of course, we have adult children living with their parents for a long period of time as compared to other countries. So in this case, when people have been forced together in close quarters, what do you think? What do you think are the difficulties that they're facing, and what do you predict about the situation?
Is it direct to me?
I guess it is not directed to any specific panelist, so anybody can feel free to chip in.
I see. Well, I think it depends on the living space. Some of the families who are living in the 1 to 2 room units, in our study, 400 families of them, the household size ranges from 2 to 13 people who live in there. So for the almost 40% who have household that have more than 5 people living in a small space, that's going to be very difficult, I think. It takes a lot to manage some personal space and manage the frictions, tension that could come about. But if you have enough, you have a lot more space in other housing type, then I think it's not that big a problem. It takes organization of the household members to work out a routine and to work out space to see how to for everyone to do what they need to do. And I think it's also the bright spot that some families are in fact spending time enjoying each other, bonding with each other, eating, having meals more often. I think another good thing is parents are spending more time getting involved in children's schoolwork. That's all very good things. But as I said, in the small units, that's going to be a challenge, and then it still takes organization skills and everyone's cooperation to make these routines and schedules work out for everyone.
If I might add on, Pauline, yeah, I mean, if I read the question, if it erupts, the memories erupt and it comes onto being, it's going to be further challenging than just me staying home without any further memory. So I would suggest this. I speak about the families from within. So we need to identify, if we are going to be close, whether someone is a member in that family can understand that this particular person might have this issue. That's where the conversation needs to open up. We've got to be raw, upfront, and personal as a family. This is not about me doing a CCA. I'm going to spend COVID with you, and after that, I'm getting out. This is us as a family. So do we notice such things happening? And if the person themselves can't seek help from within the family, I think if you want to make the family, this person needs to then look, how can I get support? Because it's happening to me. I'm the one facing these challenges. There are enough support online today without having to get out of the house to make a call. If you have a private space somewhere, if you don't have, just walk out for a while, take that walk. There are online support help from counselors. There's a national care hotline. They've increased that, by the way. I mean, Koho said that there are some things that are less. The physical things are less. But the other things that can go online have been increased. They've increased the number of psychologists, the number of agencies that are ready to support such cases. So from within, I think family members pay attention. From within, the people need to say, I need to do something about it. Seek help, seek support to write this up.
I have a question coming from Anyal Chanda, and the question is quite perceptive. So he points out that there are other countries in Asia, including Japan, where the homes tend to face space restrictions. So in such situations, how do they deal with the pandemic situation, and can we borrow any lessons from these other countries? I'm happy to, and this is not directed at any particular person, so anybody can speak up.
I mean, I can't answer this question. The context is not what I'm familiar with in other countries. But the concept of space, as mentioned by Jean just now, is if you feel that constriction and you feel that tension and pressure amongst everything that's happening, it doesn't mean you're defeated. It's in human relationship. Space doesn't define that it's going to be a done deal if your space is small. It is in that relationship and how we open up that's going to be the outcome. Similarly, if you've got a big space and you don't do the same thing, the same challenges will appear.
This, shall we move on to another question? This question is asking, how do we make families strong from within? And I guess this question is direct towards you, Ishak. When a family is having a quarrel, how would they even get from there to go towards a more positive outlook?
I really like that question because I kind of said it a couple of times. Why I say this, it's a very good point, is this. We tend to take our behaviors and try and do things to mitigate, to manipulate sometimes. From within means, let's start with, this is my family. Make or break, this is my family. I mean, I can choose to live out tomorrow, and I've got elder kids, and they can choose to live out anytime. They're working. But from within means is our mindset. Is this my family? And you have to start with that, because if this is just, circuit breaker time and I'm just stuck with you people, then where's the from within? Then I will just do behaviors just to stick it out. I just stick it out. And what does stick it out means? I hold grudges, I hold it inside me. So from within is an opportunity here. From within is as we say, the fathers are now spending more time at home, literally at home. The mothers who are working also spending more time at home. It's no longer just a helper for those who have helpers. It is up front and center. From within means, do you recognize that this is your family? Your choices are kind of a few. Stick it out and just show that face and block it out and say, I don't care who you are. Or open up. Find meaning in trying to figure out how do you communicate. And if you need help, again, okay, I don't know how to do it. Maybe it's an activity at home. I don't know. I heard of activities, but I don't know what to do. There are many links that can support you. But if you haven't started from within, any other link is not useful. It's just an excuse. No, that doesn't work. I tried this. Somebody told me this. No, it doesn't work. But what happens within is important. So is this your family? Are these the people you're going to ride out challenges? That is from within, meaning from my view.
Thank you. I think that there's a question here I'm getting, which is quite which is policy oriented and would be, I think, very well directed towards either you, Jean, or Coco. It says here that oftentimes it's too late by the time that we have seen families starting to come apart. Are there ways that we can actually preemptively tell that families are starting to break up and intervene at that point rather than wait for things to have gone down to a more negative situation?
Well, in the context of lower income families, right, and the economic stresses they face, this is not a new discovery, right? So it has not dawned on us suddenly that they live their lives under great strain, and their basic needs are not met, right? People have been studying and working on these issues for a long time. There are NGOs who are dedicated to addressing some of these issues, and have been operating for many years, right? So the question as to what we can do preemptively, would one of the obvious things would really be to listen to people, right, who work in these spaces, rather than to only listen to narratives that say that everything is fine, right? If we open up the conversation to more diverse views, especially the views of people who do the work, right, or studying some of these issues and to tackle some of these issues, we can do something about it. So we perhaps cannot preempt what has really happened now, but this question, I think, is pointing us towards what to do next, which is that we must now then draw the right lessons from this crisis, right? What we have failed to notice before, we must not ignore anymore, right? And the problems have been long-standing and deeply rooted. We must now kind of tackle with much more resolve after the crisis is over. So all of those issues have already been raised. The lack of space in public rental housing, right? So the decline in the decrease in space in rental flats has been a trend several decades in the making. Right? Rental flats in the public housing system used to come in a greater range of sizes, but from the 1980s onwards, a policy decision was made that rental flats should only be 1 or 2 rooms. So smaller flats to rent, larger flats to sell. So that was a decision. Again, so not a surprise, right? It's just that its effects have become much more apparent and much more damaging at this time, right? And therefore, then the suffering is so widespread that we come to notice. But that would be the main message, right? That to preempt such hardship the next time round, we really need to draw the right lessons this time.
I think I saw Jean. You had a hand up. Did you want to interject?
Okay, yeah, sure, if I may. In general, research is to identify the determinants of the stress, why families are feeling stressed, what are the factors that are causing that, and to address them more directly to prevent future problems from going on. So here we know that a lot of the problems are economic. Even the stress, where does it come from? Stress and anxiety, many of them are because of job loss. So I think important measures could be helping the parents to find, or individuals to find, to have job search more efficiently. So they line up with the jobs so they can function more effectively as an individual and as parents. If the children don't have all materials they need, then provide enough books and or other online materials for them to learn more efficiently. That's something we have to do too. If infidelity is a big reason for couples to divorce, then we have to address couples' relationship through various channels. And I think the government and other NGOs have been doing that. But from my point of view, research, evidence-based research is very important, and that would be useful to help guide the policy decisions to intervene at hopefully at a much earlier time than when things have already fallen apart.
Along this line of discussion about proactive policies and looking forward, I have a question here from Isabella Lim from CNA. And she's asking, how can governmental policies with regard to parental leave, care leave, etc., support some positive impacts we've seen at this time, including what Jean mentioned about increased involvement from fathers, so that they can be long-lasting even after the circuit breaker is over? Now, we know that this circuit breaker is ending in early June, but there'll be a long time yet for those of us working from home. So is there any way that, just repeating the question, that we can design these policies or add elements to them so that they last long after the circuit breaker?
I will try and attempt that answer. I'm not from the government. We are volunteers and looking at how we can improve families and partners. So we're happy that the government has introduced things that are pro-family and more things coming up. But we are also mindful that it also takes where do we spend time most in? We will most consume at work. We are mindful that it's just not the government, but we will need the organizations to understand that will the person coming to work with family challenges be a better employee if they have a family focus, if you have a family support focus too? Will they be a more effective employee or not? And this is the new considerations. And so one of the things we want to do is not just the government policies, but can workplaces now look into how they can, in tactical terms, within the context of that company, be perhaps what we say made for families. And we are trying to go out there as a branding. Can you be made for families? Can you look at the policies you have within the organization? We talk about work from home. That happened because of pandemic and COVID. Could this be a part of how you want to work? Because it's not about convenience. The work from home is because of circuit breaker, because of pandemic. But think about work from home. The work from home is not saying I will work less. I will find meaning and space to work for you. And in the context from home, within the space that I can look after the people that are comfortable with me. And that could possibly make me a stronger employee. So we're looking at policies and small changes or small things that companies can do to not just say work from home, family-friendly policies with organizations, perhaps even restaurants, family-friendly restaurants that, when you come next time beyond COVID, the family is here to stay. It's going to continue to grow as a family. Would I want to bring my young kids to this restaurant? And they said, no, but I want to eat this particular food. So family-friendly policies are something we want to work on. We want to reach out to the organizations within Singapore and probably say you are made for families, because family is an important person in your organization. The family or the people working in your organization is also important. So that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, I think we talked quite a bit about policy. I'm hearing a lot of questions from various different viewers, and they all want to make the same point, meaning they want us to talk about what family really entails. First of all, to talk about other types of families, so not just as Coco mentioned, the idealized version of family, but other types of households. So the notion of family that we who are facing the COVID-19 and are being ignored in the discussion. I think I'm hearing a lot of comments and questions about that. So I'm happy to ask the panelists for their opinion. And at the same time, I also think that perhaps the other strain of large body of comments that I'm catching right now is the question about intergenerational relationship. So I think we've talked a little bit about relationships between adult children and parents, but we've not really heard that much about relationship between the elderly and children who are already of an age to support them. So about the elderly, do do you foresee that the economic situation will lead to more elderly depending on their adult children? And simultaneously, the adult children may have less means to care for these parents. So what does it mean for intergenerational relationships? So again, two questions. One of them talking about single parent families, for example, and other non-traditional families, and the other one talking about intergenerational ties. So you can pick whichever one you prefer to address, and it's open, of course, to the whole panel.
Oh, you want to?
Yeah, I can make kind of two comments. One is on the income security. You mentioned support for older elderly parents, and then the question about what is a family, right? So the first issue is there has been quite a lot of work done on retirement income security in Singapore. And it is very clear that in Singapore, the retirement income security system is not, in fact, the CPF, not for current cohorts of elderly people anyway. Singapore's retirement income system is adult children, right? So it is the most common source of income for older people is their children, right? So demographically, the outlook is very, very clear, and demographic trends are very slow to turn around, which is that this is not a sustainable arrangement, right? Just because there'll be fewer adult children and so on. And with greater kind of economic uncertainty, both because of crises like this, as well as ongoing structural changes in the economy, it further deepens the worries, right, of making adult children the chief source of income for older people. So that means there are very good reasons for us to rethink the way we organize retirement income security. The first question about what is a family, I think it's useful to approach that from the perspective of social participation. When we spoke to elderly people in our minimum income standards study, they helped us to understand that, of course, people have families, many elderly people have children and so on, but co-residence rates, so living with children, is also declining. So instead, right, rather than focus kind of on whether older people live with their children, it's perhaps more important to think about where do they meet their needs for social connection and belonging, right, and friendship, right, and affection and so on. And often this is found in the neighborhood, right? So in times of lockdown, I think we have all seen stories, online of especially older men who try very hard, to find ways and means to meet their friends outside. Sometimes they look at you a bit sheepishly when you walk past because they know they're not supposed to do it, but they do anyway. They try to stand a bit further apart. They gather outside but pretend they're not really gathering outside. The way to, I think, we understand this is that that's really important to them. That is their family. But for older people, especially those who do not live with their children, and if they do not primarily find their social connections online, as younger people do, that opportunity to go out and hang out at the coffee shop and meet a few friends is critically important to them. Without that, they're completely cut off, right, from the society outside. And so that's really important to them. This period, of course, we know there are good reasons for social distancing, for health reasons, but I think focusing on how people find their social connections and how this is different across generations can perhaps help us to be a bit more understanding, right? When we see a group of older men gathering in the dark, right, at a corner of the void deck, just to chat with friends.
Yes, please.
Okay, so the issue about single parent and divorced parent, I think that's really crucial. And this group of families, we're seeing a much higher percentage in living in the HDB rental units, which Koho and I have talked about. So the living space, sometimes it's still an issue. And of course, the single parents, what they also face is a time constraint. There's not another person to help with them. And that is something that we need to provide more support to. So when we talked about support to families, we don't just think about intact families. There's a single divorced family, and then there's also remarriage. Actually, remarriage is very high in Singapore. 24% of the household are remarried kind of a household. And they have a different sets of concern. With new and old family members, they have a different sets of concerns. So we need to take them a lot more into policy considerations too. As to the questions about the elderly in Singapore, I would like to point out there are some bright spots too that happened during this COVID-19, and that is that a lot of older folks are learning new technologies to connect with the outside world, certainly with their children and with their friends too, to think of creative ways to learn this technology. In a way, we're all forced to learn all this technology. I have to learn all kinds of things to make sure that I get the things I need to do done too. But this is a good thing. There's a lot of elderlies who live alone. They need these kind of technology a lot more, and hopefully this this COVID really is provide a lot of incentive for people to learn this technology and change the social norms too. It's just the way you think about how you get things done, how you connect with family and friends. It doesn't have to be physical connection. It can be even more frequent than before, contact with people you know, but not through other online or other more creative ways to do it.
I want to push us along this line of talking about technology, and also try to loop you in, Ishak, into the question. So I have a question about how technology can help to bridge the perceived division between elderly and younger generations in households. And at the same time, I also wanted to point out that in these times, the virus has required us to distance ourselves from our relatives and from our next door neighbors. So are we become, our household divisions, are they becoming more invisible and more difficult to detect? So Ishak, you brought up the idea of giving our vitamins to families. Would it be more difficult to pass these vitamins along if they are these disputes and tensions are becoming more and more difficult to and less obvious, and there's less emotional support from traditional sources?
I'm looking at your question, and seems like two parts there. You talk about in conflict and situations, how do we put the vitamins in? How do we give them the vitamins, right? We're not going to force feed, by the way. And then you talk about technology, and I think in anything in my own learning, technology is always an enabler to something you desire to do. If technology is pushed to you for its purpose, it's a total different ballgame. So if it's a family context, and if it's an elderly and technology, you just can't tell the elderly, because you don't want to learn this, you see, I'm going to be far away from you. And then you use that to manipulate your elderly and says, it's your fault. But so technology should be an enabler, and it's helpful. I mean, I just give you a very tactical example. On Sunday, my mom is going to be not able to visit anybody for Hari Raya, right? And she can't see all the other people she used to see. She's not into technology. She can navigate a Netflix on her own by now. But what we need to do then is support her. So the answer is not about technology. What can we still support the elderly? And if she's ready to pick up something, how do we support her to learn that technology? If she can't do it, how do we support her with technology? So whichever the answer is, it's not about technology, it's how do we then support the elderly? That's my first answer to that first question. And on vitamins to people who have issues, I want to be saying, in my experience in relationships, it's never, wow, everything is fine. If I hear in relationship, especially families, everything is fine, I think there's something wrong there. Right? So that's my view, because we go into roller coaster modes, we do sometimes shouting match, we have arguments. That is family. If a family is hoo ha ha fine, I mean, there could be families like that, but in most experience. So what does vitamins mean? There are vitamins you want to take to create the atmosphere for fun. So what I did, okay, we're free tonight. Let's do a movie night. How do we do it? Or let's do a game night. So there could be vitamins to tell people, how do you want to do things for fun? Teach them things that, I have, whether it's technology or activities. But there are also vitamins on how to tell people how to manage elderly with patience. Just, I need to understand it from my heart, take examples. So when we say vitamins, firstly, you don't take vitamins that you don't need. This is politically sensitive at this point of time. You take the ones that you identify that you need. And how do you get that? So whilst we say take the vitamins, we're going to say we are out there to try and reach out to cater and tailorize as many or types that we can to help families pick it up. Let me share an analogy. When this is typical for young parents, when you're about to have a kid, the wife is expecting. There is the one time I take vitamins on how do I look after my kid. What's happening in the trimester? I read books and I understand. I don't know why after that, kind of the kid has been delivered. Many just trial and error parenting. Fine, if you're intuitively good, excellent. But I think along every step of the way, you need vitamins. We're going to work on vitamins that could be available. Now, recently, we just push in some of these kind of vitamins. We did a series in COVID. We did a series for the last 2 months, and we had Ask FFL, which means we had experts talking about issues ranging from marital, children, how do you manage home-based learning. We have our friends or champions, advocates talk about marriage and family. We have one tonight, I think 8:30, one on Saturday night. We've got 3.7 million unique viewers who are wanting to look at what are these vitamins that I can use to help me. But we're not forcing these viewers to come on board. So from within, change the mindset, pick up things if you can to make that family better because you want to.
So I think we're kind of approaching close to the end of the discussion period. I think that Jean, you have really brought out a couple of a couple of bright spots, as you put it, on the landscape, including fathers spending more time with their children and elderly learning to use technology much more than they used to. Do you, Coco or Ishak, do you have anything to add to that, or Jean as well? Do you have any more comments on that? On whether we can see anything that's good coming out as well for families?
I think and one good thing is if organizations realize that working from home is just not for COVID, it's an opportunity, it's a beginning of a start. And then we say, then what happens at home? Oh gosh, small space, all the fighting will happen. I don't want to be at home, I want to go back to work. No, let's start from here first. A bit more time with the family is something, the bright spot here is something useful. And it starts with that first. So that's a bright spot. A bit more time with the family. We've given a lot now, but I think in the future, the bright spot is a little bit more time with the family than what we had before. It's always going to be useful to continue to make the family, grow the family, find that meaning. And that's a bright spot for me.
Okay, I think that to leave some time for everybody to make some closing remarks, I would like to invite each of the panelists. Thank you for your time to deliver a short final statement on families during COVID, and if possible, to answer one more, to also bring your perspective on one more question, which is what interventions do you consider to be most urgent now, most appropriate now in the immediate short term?
Okay. Well, I find that I personally find it very difficult to talk about positives or silver linings in a time like this. But perhaps we can think about what we can do differently, right, in future. And many people have pointed out that this crisis can maybe be the start of a different way of doing things, of organizing our society and economy and relationship to the environment and so on. This will not be easy though, right? Because the old arguments, old interests, and the forces that created previous ways of doing things, they still exist. And as we've seen from past crises, soon these will regroup, right? They will reinterpret the problem, they will frame the solution as something that can be found in the status quo, perhaps in minor amendments, right? But we have gained something. I think what we have gained is a perspective, a clearer realization of problems, and awareness of unfairness, right? And the experience of doing some things differently for a while, right? Including kind of the whole suite of measures that have been introduced as an immediate response that's very much needed at this point, right? All the various policy interventions and help measures. The key is to connect what we have learned now to deeper, long-standing problems, and then to the changes that need to happen. So to give concrete examples with migrant workers, I think we need to recognize how the infections and the housing situation are linked to the wider conditions of their employment here, such as their wages and unequal power relationship between employers and workers, and the many other issues that migrant worker NGOs have studied and talked about for many years. Right? With homeless people, I think it's worth reflecting that if the supply of public rental flats was increased by just 1.6%, we can accommodate the entire homeless population in Singapore. Right? Of course, the quality of rental housing matters, especially space, right? That needs to improve. And the eligibility rules must be fairer, otherwise people won't qualify for rental housing. And if we do that, this will benefit not just homeless people, but all the elderly people and low-income families who depend on rental housing. We have seen clearly that our society has not yet met everyone's basic needs. We should therefore bring basic needs and standards based on these needs into the center of social policy making. That means when deciding on things like rates of financial assistance or the allocation of rental housing and other support, it must be much more based on what people need to lead decent lives. As large numbers of people during this crisis have sought and received additional help, I hope we can see that there is nothing wrong with needing help during hard times. Right? In fact, that's the foundation for a cohesive and resilient society. Right? If we can make these changes, I think they will put us in a much better position should a crisis of this scale happen again.
Over to you, Jean.
Okay, I think this is undoubtedly a very challenging time for all families, but I think we have seen the government communities coming together in a very prompt way, coming up with various innovative measures to help families, individuals, to help employers, to make things a lot easier for families. So I think I hope we don't waste this crisis because my hope is that this crisis has revealed a lot of the weak point in the society about where the private social support is not sufficient, where the public safety net is not sufficient, and have workplace, school, and government coming together to solve problems in such a hard time. I think these institutions have all thought of how to improve the situation and make things better. For example, the work-life balance, how to make things easier. And I hope that through this incident, the social norms has been changed. Some of the social norms has been changed. For example, the gender relations at home. I hope that the workplace and men start to feel more comfortable sharing childcare and housework. Workplace don't feel like they have to penalize men if they kind of take too many days off for their children and so on. So these are one example where these different institutions are coming together to think of what can we support the families better. And I hope we know that these are these are not just temporary problems we will have. These are real problems, and many of these problems will keep coming up. So we should be persistent about our effort in solving the coordination between school and family, between family and community, and government to come together to support and strengthen family, and family of different types. We already talked about it's not just intact families that we need to pay attention to. The vulnerable groups are very clear, and we know who they are. We know what their needs are. We have talked about, there's a lot of room to do a lot more to support these vulnerable families, and I think we should continue to do that. And then finally, I think from an academic point of view and from policy making point of view, we need more data to understand what's happening during this period of time. We need longitudinal panel data to understand some of the determinants and consequences of how people are coping, and consequences of people of different gender, race, and socioeconomic status to make better policies to work better for the family.
And finally, Ishak.
Yeah, I'll answer what do we intervene? And I want to go back to that. It seems like now there are kind of two groups. The unique situation families, the ones that are vulnerable, the ones that are already in conflicts, or whichever the answer would be, that's one group. And then there's, of course, the mainstream families, and we talk about the 700,000 odd also households. And the intervention I see that I would like to work on, and I think this is where the Families Online will want to work on, is the word presence. We need to go out there and be where the community is and do for both. For the ones that need to be picked up, there was a question earlier, how do we know what indicators will tell us that things are not going right? When we say go out there, it's just not having a center somewhere for them to go to, but looking at presence through community, or what we call family champions. Grow people who have that heart to go out there and talk to people and figure out which family needs help. Listen to the indicators it need to. Somebody's family needs help from this unique group. So presence for them. Presence for the mainstream families. What does that mean? When we are there, we're closer, we can provide those tailored vitamins for them. I'm okay, but I can be better. So this vitamin, because of our presence in the community, we kind of say we can go upstream. Because if we go upstream today, that same family that are okay today, who knows in the future something might happen and they might need that support, and they are more with the vitamins, they can kind of either know where next to get or a bit stronger to take on those challenges. So presence is something we want to do. And I would like to end by in going back to a perspective that has the pandemic opened our minds to what it means to be connected again to our family members. That is that opportunity. We're forced into circuit breaker, but why should we say we're forced to be staying with our family? We should be staying there. It's gifted to be staying with your family a bit longer. So if that mindset didn't change, oh my God, I'm forced to be with my family. But if we say the pandemic has given me a gift. Because, Singapore, as we say, other than the unique family, we're structured to live in family because older children are staying on as family, within the families. We're not having a space where many people are renting out as individuals. So if you work from home, you're working from home with family around you. Your home-based learning, of course, families, we're all in the face of everybody. When we say stay safe, stay home, go home to your family. So the cliche is home is where the heart is. It's a cliche. But home is also where we find safety. But does home and the family give us meaning in life? It's a question. Does home and family give us meaning in life? So I can't answer that for everybody who's listening in. I'm not here to answer for you. So, and for every one of us from within, answer that question. Beyond our careers, perhaps even beyond our good friends in general, is home and family where is my center? Beyond the current pandemic, is home and family beyond my center? Is my center? And take a look. This pandemic doesn't mean forever there's no more pandemic after this. It could be something else. We're still in the time of terror, and we say, what if the community is challenged in a terror-related incident? The family is still kind of, that safety, that resilience, still go back to that family unit. So I then leave you with all of us the questions. Where do you want to be as your safe place? Physically, emotionally. Where do you want to be loved, give love, and feel belong? And in that sense, going up the Maslow's hierarchy from the lowest level to feeling loved. And where do you want to feel free to be yourself? If those answers are my family, is my home, that's the beginning. That's what starkly is facing us now. You stay home, answer those questions. And if that is then true, let us then, we've got work to do. We will do that work. We will go out and find more opportunities to build stronger families, to build resilient families. So then my answer, therefore, the pandemic is then an opportunity to make that family and not break it, and go out there and support the ones that need to support. Thank you.
So for me to wrap up, let me conclude by sharing that there'll be new research coming out of the Alkawai School, including some results that we have been collecting from a panel of young married couples that have been following since 2018, and we'll continue to follow through the circuit breaker into phase 1 of reopening up in Singapore. Right now, we're still collecting data with the survey company, Nexus Link, and we'll be posting our findings on our school newsletter, Global is Asian. So if you'd like to hear more about findings that we are seeing through the circuit breaker, we'd like to invite you to come to our school website, which is lkynus.nus.edu.sg/GIA, and subscribe. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, for audience, for tuning in tonight. And please leave us your feedback at the link provided in the closing frame. So thank you and good night.